Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Our featured guest is Nassim Varasteh, an internationally recognized and respected karate champion when she was competing, and since 2014 as the head coach for the Canadian national karate team. Leading the conversation is Farinaz Lari. She is the first Iranian woman to win the World Kickboxing Championship, and she did so while wearing the hijab. Her nickname is Spitfire, which appropriately captures Farinaz's passion. Farinaz immigrated to Canada in 2010. She is the co-founder of District Warrior, a boutique fitness studio in Vancouver. She is a public speaker, an influencer, and a model. The Yara Dialogues is so pleased to bring these two fierce women together for the first time. They have literally fought their way to the top in a highly competitive, male-dominated combat sports arena. They will discuss the challenges they faced, the lessons they learned, and the change that still needs to be made as leaders in the field. We are grateful to Farinaz and Nassim for taking time out of their very busy schedules to join us. I cannot think of a better way to kick off 2021. We wish Nassim and Team Canada all the best in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. And without further ado, I turn it over to Farinaz.
Thank you, Atusa. I'm in a dialogue with Nassim Varasteh, also known as Karate Queen. She's currently the Senior National Team Comité head coach of Karate Canada. Her position is quite unique because she's the only female head coach of a combat sport in Canada. Before coaching, Nassim had a competitive karate career. She is the 12-time consecutive Ontario provincial champion, 12-time Canadian national champion, and 2-time silver medalist in the World Championships. She is the daughter of Dr. Varasteh, who is the founder of karate in Iran. His name is still heard in every martial arts dojo around Iran. He's highly respected, and so is Nassim. Nassim is a 12-time provincial karate champion, 12-time national karate champion, and 2-time world silver medalist in karate. Her journey began at the age of 6 with karate. However, her love ran deep when she won her first competition at the age of 12. She then followed competitive karate religiously while studying in university, working 7 days a week at her father's dojo and doing personal training on the side. She's attended multiple international championships while studying psychology in university. It was after her second World Championships where she decided to step off the competition ring as an athlete, but continued on her journey as a head coach and is still doing so. She owns her own karate dojo in Ontario, Canada, and she focuses on raising her beautiful family and being a full-time coach. Nassim, thank you for having this dialogue with me.
Thank you, Farinaz, John, for that super awesome introduction.
I'm honored to have you here and inspired by your professional and personal life. I'm going to start my first question with, of course, I know you get this all the time, but what made you gravitate towards karate in individual sport?
To be honest, and I think I mentioned this in other interviews, was that when I first started karate, I actually hated it. I didn't hate it, but there was days where I was taken to the dojo punching and kicking and screaming and saying, no, I don't want to go. I want to stay home. Just like most kids, our interests are diverse. And one day we want to do soccer and the next day we want to do volleyball. And if it's summertime, we want to be in the pool. I was always interested in sports. I was always super active during recess. I was always in the playground, playing soccer, playing handball, playing whatever I could play. But to be competitive, I started my competitive journey when I was 12 years old. And then I realized after winning gold at my first competition that, hey, I'm actually good at this. This could actually be something that I might enjoy doing and might be good at. So that's where the journey began. I always enjoyed team sports as well. I was doing volleyball competitively in high school, but we were actually doing really well, our high school team. And we were training early in the morning, and we would also train after school. And after school training, I would also have to go to karate. And then I developed a tennis elbow. So my dad was like, listen, you can't train this rigorously in two different disciplines. You're eventually going to have to choose one. So I ended up choosing karate, of course. High school volleyball wasn't gonna, I don't imagine it would have, and I'm not really that tall. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be tall enough to really, to be competitive on the national team level in this sport. So I gravitated towards karate. And it wasn't because I wasn't in a team environment. I always felt in the dojo that I was part of a team because I had my teammates, you have your coaches, you have your sparring partners. So even though you compete on the mat alone, it's a very dynamic environment in the dojo regardless.
You touched on saying that when you won your first competition, you felt like this is for you. So do you feel like this was a natural instinct, that competitiveness?
I think some children are by nature a lot more competitive than others. I think I was always competitive, even when I would be in the playground playing soccer with my classmates. I was very competitive, probably more so than other kids. But it was just an outlet for me to express that and to be able to be competitive. So yeah.
And then also you spoke of your father saying that you need to choose one. For our audience who don't know, karate has two disciplines. Komite is the one that Nassim competed in, which is a bit more aggressive, as normal people would say, because it's a contact sport. Were your family okay with that decision? You deciding on that part of karate?
My mother was always moms are moms. If I got hit one day in practice, she would be like rushing over to see if I'm okay. And it was, I guess it's a natural instinct for a mother to be very protective. My father, of course, supported me, and he had seen enough of the contact growing up. And for him, it was very normal. So he wasn't very sensitive towards it. But my mother, even though she didn't like the contact aspect of it, she ended up supporting me because she saw that I loved it so much. So, but of course, my brother, my sisters, we all grew up with it. So for us, it was very normal. It was a very normal activity to gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm. Going back to your athletic career, since you started competing and during the time you competed, compared to how it is right now, do you feel like that athletic competitive scene has changed for women at all?
Absolutely. When I started competing, well, are we making reference to my years as a junior competing or as a senior? Because it's changed.
Shifted. I would say senior because you're now the head coach of the senior team.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was a competitor, there was fewer weight divisions for the females. Now it's equal. So there's 5 and 5. The female rounds were 2 minutes versus the males that were 3 minutes. So, the sport has evolved, and times have changed, and there's just as many females competing as there are males, just because of the equal number of weight divisions and participants and everything. So that's been one major shift. There's still not a large number of female coaches, and I think that's just because things have progressed in that front a lot in North America, but that's not necessarily true in the rest of the world. So I feel like in time, things will change, but I think it's a slower progression in terms of women in coaching and in other leadership positions.
Before we move on, I just want to tell our audience that you're modest, so you're never going to say this, but it's because of women like you with the athletic ability and the fact that you've showcased your skills is the reason that now there's more women involved in the sport and there is equal minute in rounds for women. Before, I hate to say this, but it is true. Women were considered weaker. So that's why the rounds were shorter. In my sports, their rest time was longer, which is so sad. Yeah. But I'm just trying to touch the fact that it's you are one of the reasons that the sport is now facing equality. So it's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You touched a little bit on the coaching. You said there's not that many female coaches. When you were an athlete competing, were there any female coaches, at least for the female team?
No, there was one coach for the male and female. And even now, we don't have a male and female for the different genders. There wasn't as many females. Again, I feel like, in the last 10 years or so, I guess you can say it was, it's not a feminist movement per se, but there's definitely, people are gravitating towards understanding that we need to have a level playing field, that somebody's skill set and what their talents are should determine if they have access to a certain position, whether it be coaching or whatnot. So I think I've had a certain skill set at the time when I originally applied for the position, and I think I was in a good position. And I was fortunate enough to work with a national federation who was open-minded enough to actually take the risk, and not worry about what other people said and not worry about other people's opinions. So I was lucky in that sense.
And achieved.
And still working at it. Yeah. It's a work in progress. I mean, very well in sport, it's like if you achieve something, there's always the next. So it's just part of our characters that we're always, after achieving success in one thing, we're always looking to the next challenge. So
I also want to speak of the fact that because men have been doing the sport longer, sometimes no matter how well achieved a female athlete, a coach is, the federations tend to go towards the male because of their them being in the sports, basically involved in sports longer. So the fact that you are the first ever female head coach doesn't just show that they're open-minded. They are, and that's great. But it just shows that how confident you are in your skill set and how well you do it. So that's another reason that I think our audience should take the most out of this dialogue and the time with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to take our talk towards your discipline, your habits when you are a competitive athlete. Let's go to that mental preparations. Were there any ritual that helped you prepare for competitions?
Oh boy. What do they say? They say, 90% of the preparation on the game day is 90% mental. And of course, I mean, I agree and disagree with that. All the athletes who are competing at that world stage all have phenomenal athleticism, technical skills, tactical skills. And really, it all comes down to being able to perform when it matters. So this is something that was developed over time. That's for sure. I would be lying if I said that I had it down packed from the very beginning and I didn't go through ups and downs. That's certainly not the case. I started my competitive career strong, of course, as a junior. but things change a lot as you progress into the senior divisions. And I remember my first senior international competition, I got a bronze at the Pan American Championships. But when I tried to reflect on my matches, I couldn't remember what happened. It was almost like I'd just been put in the ring and I blacked out. And it's not really something I could learn from. And I wouldn't be able to repeat that performance because I couldn't really take much away from it. And not just that, it was a very stressful experience. After that, I had many ups and downs, which is normal in a competitive journey. I'm sure you can relate to that. So over time, I think the aim of any athlete is to be able to be consistent in their performance. So that's something that I struggled with over the years, was to be able to be consistent. And really, over time, I realized that some of my best performances was when I had no expectations going in, was when I wasn't thinking about the outcome. So, a lot of times my mental performance was based around everything I should be doing before competition. How much sleep to be getting, what to be eating, how much should I be socializing with my teammates, how much time should I be spending alone to kind of like mentally rehearse and to visualize my preparation and performance, all of that. So I would say that the mental aspect is a very, very big aspect of any high level competitor, or even anybody, like really anybody in life. I think when you're going into any situation, you need to be mentally prepared to be able to have a good performance.
For someone who's basically been a competitive athlete since they're super young, did you still get pre-competition jitters?
Absolutely. I mean, I got jitters before this. I think it's something that you accept as a natural part of the experience, and you learn to kind of channel that energy into a positive way. When I try to explain it to my junior athletes, I say this is how world records are broken. Is you can do sprints every day, you can do jumps, but it's on that day of competition. It's those emotions that are heightened that will actually push you to have a stronger performance than other. So I absolutely had them. I still have them when I have to do a speech or a presentation, or even at a world championship. Like when I'm coaching, I still get butterflies in my stomach, and I think it's normal and it's healthy, and it's something that, again, over time, you just accept as a natural part of the experience.
As I mentioned earlier, your degrees in psychology, and when you're explaining this, all I can think about is when I was competing and with our coaches, I always felt like that awareness of mental preparation and mental strength wasn't there. And now when you're talking about your junior athletes and how you are turning that jitter and nervousness into positiveness for them, it just shows how your education has helped with basically the coach that you are today.
Thank you. I think it's a combination of experience also as an athlete. Of course, when I was studying, I was nearing the end of my competitive career. I can honestly say that my biggest teacher was my poor performances. When I didn't have a strong performance, or, it didn't happen often for me to lose first round, but it did happen. And those were the biggest teachers of all, were those upset performances that I would look back to and really reflect on and see like what I did right, what I did wrong, and how I can change and adapt in order to have a stronger performance. So absolutely, I would say that, having a formal education is a big factor. But at the same time, I think if you're able to be able to reflect on your experiences in a very in a very objective way, to detach yourself from your feelings and emotions and how you feel personally about the event, and really look at it in a way where you are able to analyze your actions and your emotions. I think there's a lot to take away from our experiences in life.
You said your biggest teacher was your bad experiences, or your losses, I should say. How did you recover mentally after an event like that? After, I would say, a loss or not a good performance, I should say.
Again, this was something that changed over time. It like when I was younger and I didn't have the experience, we tend to dwell and to focus on, and we focus on the things that are not necessarily helpful. We focus on things that we can never change again. We perceive things the wrong way. We want to go back and do it right and all of that. There's a mature way of processing an event, and then there's a way where we kind of get stuck in a cycle of negative thoughts. I've experienced both. And there were events where I didn't have a good performance, and I felt nothing but a sense of relief after I lost, because the process was wrong, because I was quick to understand that my thought process going into the event was wrong. I was focused on the outcome. I was maybe too focused on winning. I was maybe too focused on not losing. And when you focus on the outcome, you don't focus on the process. And as I got more seasoned, I guess, when I became a more seasoned athlete, I was quick to realize that you cannot focus on the outcome. You have to focus on the process. So anyway, I mean, later on, if I had a loss, I would sit down and just analyze my performance, analyze my preparation, and draw whatever conclusions I needed to draw and move on to the next. And that's it. I mean, it just became as simple as that. It was as simple as, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's go to the drawing board and learn what we have to learn. And then you take your notes, and then you close your books, and then you focus on the next event. So. And
then what about visualization? You mentioned touched a little bit on that. You said I would focus on the process. Is that what you would do? Visualize what you would do in a competition?
Absolutely. So, wow. So this is going to be a little bit complicated, but to do the visualization would start actually in my daily training. So to visualize is something that you need to be used to doing. You can't just show up to a competition and say, okay, well, now I'm going to visualize. You can't do that, because again, it's like, let's just put myself 2 weeks out from competition. Let's say I'm about 2 weeks out from the World Championships. I would visualize and execute my warm up. So this is how I'm going to warm up for my first match. I would repeat and rehearse the warm up, and not just visualize the warm ups and going through the motions, but also to visualize how I should be feeling, how I should be breathing. Because your mind is very connected with your body. You can't separate the mental and the physical and the emotional. They're all very closely intertwined. So when I would visualize my warm-up and preparation, it would really bring in as many relevant aspects to my preparation. So I would do this on a daily basis leading up to my event. And again, I think when you're able to visualize all of these steps, when you show up to competition, and I'm telling you, in the warm-up area of any sport, whether it's gymnastics or whether it's karate or kickboxing or whatever, when you're in the warm-up area, it's very intense. You're there with other athletes and everybody wants to be the best. And you can hear the crowd roaring in the stadium, and it's very easy to be thrown off balance, and to be reactive. And the last thing you want to do in that environment is to react to your environment. and, you know, and become too excited and stressed out and all of that. So, I mean, when you're able to visualize your preparation and your warm up, you really are able to control many more variables and to control, again, that process of warming up. And this is one last point about my my visualization and I guess preparation for a competition is for me, I would always work backwards from my goal. So let's just say my goal at a competition is to become a world champion, let's say, or to get a gold. This is the ultimate objective. But what do I need to do to reach that? What I need to do to reach that is when I step in the ring for my first match, I need to be 100% ready to perform. I can't control the referees. I can't control my opponent. I can't control anything. You cannot control the outcome. But what I do have control over is when I'm stepping in the ring for that first match, I need to be 100% ready to perform at my full capacity. And that means that my mind needs to be free and my body needs to be ready to react. So basically, when I would be in the warm-up area, I would always start at 0. Because at 0, it means that you're in control. And then I would step by step work my way up to 100%. And that was that. I mean, it's difficult, like it's easy to say it, but to really have a process of a true and tested process of preparation takes many years for most high performance athletes to really understand the blueprint of their preparation process, and it's gold. Really, it's gold. This is something that we do with national team athletes is we really focus on their competition preparation plan. And again, it entails all those aspects of making sure that they're visualizing and they understand all the details that are necessary for them to be 100% capacity. So yeah, I said too much. I'm sorry.
No, that was actually perfect, because when we initially started you're talking about your athletic career, you said, when I did my first ever senior competition, I couldn't remember what I did. And then right now, you just said, I visualized from the warm up all the way to the end. And then that was basically your ritual. And I would say that is probably one of the reasons that allowed you to perform very well under high pressure situations. Would you say there are other factors for that to perform well in high pressure situations?
For me, I think it was just this. It was having a grasp of, I think, you know, and this is something that varies from one person to another. Like what works for one person is not necessarily going to work for another. So again, athletes need to have a good support structure around them, or I'm not just talking about athletes, because this is really a skill that you can transfer to all aspects of your life. For people to be able to perform under pressure, it could be anything from being a high level athlete to being, I don't know, being a lawyer in a courtroom or whatnot. I mean, most people at any capacity need to perform under pressure. And really, I think if you understand the process of just showing up and being in a good and clear enough mindset to be able to perform at your best, I think this is one of the most helpful skills in life. Really, it is.
Definitely, I agree. How about your? Let's talk about you celebrating your victories. How did you do that?
Oh my God, did I? I was such a perfectionist, and I was always so hard on myself. I never needed a coach to tell me all the things that I didn't do right, because I would step out of the ring or watch my matches, and I was always so critical of myself. So there were times where I was satisfied, but I would always think about, okay, I won, but I could have done this and this and this better. So, I mean, my celebrations were very short-lived, and they were often filled with some constructive criticism. I'd like to say that, because it wasn't always so negative. So I don't know, my celebrations, it just wasn't in my character to carry on long celebrations. And at the time, thank God, there wasn't social media. I mean, you have to like post stuff and you have to like worry about what other people are saying and I don't know, whatever. So celebrations were short-lived.
And then how about now as a coach, do you recommend your athletes to celebrate at all? Do you want them to, follow your lead and have constructive criticism after their performances?
Yes, I actually encourage more celebration. And, I think the way that I coach, I ask my athletes to perceive victories and losses very much the same way. When we have a competitive calendar, and just because you want a gold at one event, it doesn't mean that it's over. We could very well have the next event in a couple of months. So, if we have a strong performance, you look back at the performance, you watch your videos, we see what we did well, we see what we have to improve on moving on to the next one. And you celebrate for a day or two, and then we have to quickly move on to the next event. So, I don't know how it was in kickboxing, but for us, our competitive calendar is pretty crazy. And people ask us if we have a competitive season, and I say no. Like we're pretty much competing from January straight into the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we have a couple of months off between November and January, and that's it. So it doesn't give much time for celebrations, especially when we're competing every month or every 2 or 2 months.
In the middle of my introduction, I forgot to mention that in a sport like karate, because it was not a Olympic sport, now it is. It's very exciting. 2020. 2021 now, but it's going to be in the Olympics, and you will be the first female karate coach in the Olympic mat, which is very, very inspiring. But I'm trying to touch the fact that when you were competitive, you had to fund basically your competitions, your training, your diet, everything yourself. And you were one of the few athletes and female athletes who were carded by the government, and you were actually recognized by the government, meaning for those of our viewers who don't know, being carded means that you will be funded for your competitions, for your accommodation, for your studying, and so on. This usually, I should say most of the time, happens when a sport is an Olympic sport, because the governments usually just recognize those competitive athletes. It's sad, but it's true. So again, one of the other reasons how inspiring your journey and your personality is the fact that when basically it wasn't heard of, you were the one athlete who were actually carded by the government. So congratulations, and that's amazing. I wanted to basically talk about that because now as a coach, when you were an athlete, you look at when you were training, there wasn't that many females, there wasn't that many female weight divisions. So most of your training was basically with the men. And now when you see more girls involved in the sport, how are your thoughts on that? I know that you have reached the pinnacle of your sport, not just with medals, but also with being recognized. When you see all these girls, is that something that you want for them? Is that something that basically you wished was more back when you were an athlete, or something that as a coach that you're working towards?
It's a good question. I never reflect on my past and wish things were different. I think that I endured a certain level of difficulty, and it just reaffirmed my motivation. but now it's nice to see that, for example, at our club, we have a really strong female competitive group, and I'm so proud of them. And I give them 100% of my attention and effort. And they're super talented, and they're all amazing girls. They're all excelling academically. They're all doing stuff, doing work outside of sport and school and academics. And you know, I push them and motivate them, but I don't push them too much in the direction of sport. You know, to be competitive at that level, it's a personal choice. So I'm very careful to balance my role as a coach in sport, and also my role as a coach in the grander scheme of their life as well, to really make sure that they're focusing on school when they have to, that they're having balance in their lives. And if I see that within this group of female, there are those who are very, very motivated and ambitious to be in the Olympics one day or to be world champion one day, then I will support them accordingly. But definitely there's been this shift, and there's been a change. And it's nice to see, families who see the value in their girls being in combat sport, who have that understanding that just because you're in a combat sport, or just because your daughter's practicing karate, that it doesn't mean that they're tomboys, and it doesn't mean that they're going to get beat up, and it doesn't mean they're going to come home with a black eye. It doesn't mean any of these things. So it's been a really, I think it's a positive time for females, and it's a good time to be a coach as well during this change.
The reason I explained your basically your athletic background and how you were being funded, and then I connected to your coaching and basically asking if you were interested in that for women, is because I wanted to mention that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to push that on your athletes. Because of the person you are, and because you have reached that, you are basically the leader of those female athletic teams. So by seeing you are already setting that example, allowing them to imagine that it's possible. Absolutely. Let's say at your time, that wasn't even imaginable, because no other female karate athlete had that opportunity. So you created that goal for those who want to reach that point. And that is, to me, that's huge for girls. Not just being involved in the sport, but knowing that becoming elite is possible.
Absolutely. And I think for me, myself personally, when I'm working with the girls and when I'm coaching, you know, I'm always very careful. I think a role as a coach is not just to push the students in the direction of your own footsteps. I always ask the girls what they're interested in, what their ambitions are, and where they see themselves in the future, and what they want to become when they get older. You know, I mean, some of them are 16, 17. I'm like, oh, what do you want to study in university? What do you want to do after that? I think the greatest role of a coach is to really make the youth realize their potential, and really give them the strength and the vision to be able to carry out their goals, and to not be afraid of failure and of obstacles, and, you know, and to build the character, because, you know, whether it's sport or whether it's something in our professional careers or anything, life is not just a straight, I don't know, smooth road. There's often twists and turns and ups and downs, and a big part of coaching is to give people the strength to be able to to be able to deal with the setbacks and the adversity. So this is something that this is, for me, this is the most rewarding aspect of coaching, is not just, working with the students and trying to make them champions. It's about, okay, you can be a champion, and even after you're a champion, you have to be a champion in life also. Beyond your career as an athlete, after that, there's many, many years awaiting where you have to be just as successful in your careers or whatnot. So that's
spoken like a true role model.
Well, I don't know. It's my take on it. So thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
True leader. Tell me about your daughter. Is she into competitive sports at all?
Oh boy, she's definitely competitive. Yeah, I don't know where she gets that from. She's competitive, but she's not as rough around the edges as I was when I was a kid, which is actually nice to see. She does do karate, and I want her to learn for self-defense purposes. And I think it's empowering for a woman. You don't need to be competitive, but I think when you have the confidence and when you have the skill, I think it's a big, it's a necessary skill. Honestly, I think it's a necessary skill for everybody. I don't see her being competitive in karate or in any other combat sport. I know that she loves tennis, so we'll see where that goes. But my approach as a parent with my own children is to introduce them to a range of sports, especially in the early years, and then see which one they gravitate towards. I think it would be unfair if I pushed them towards karate and said, oh, because I do it and your grandfather did it and your uncle did it, you have to do it too. I definitely don't have that approach. So I've kind of introduced them to a broad range of sports, and I see what they seem to gravitate towards. So she'll continue to do karate for however many years, probably until she's done with high school. And then at the same time, we'll see what she gravitates towards. So far, it's tennis. So we're supporting her in that direction.
Amazing. You talked about your girls and how you put your 100% attention towards them and you ask what they want to do. How about leadership roles? Do you put that in the conversation at all? Because now that's a possibility for girls.
Absolutely. But I think, I think leadership roles, I think number one, the first step has to be the girls have to be able to become educated. So it's to push them in the direction of getting university degrees and whatnot. And I think when you're able to motivate and encourage people to become the best in their field or to achieve a high status or not a high status, but let's say to excel in whichever respective field. Leadership possibilities will open up as a result of their character. If you're very driven and ambitious and you are able to communicate and facilitate, I think it becomes possible. So I think more than anything, it's about instilling the necessary traits. And this is something that we try to do, is to encourage them to be competitive, because I think that's a natural trait of a leader. And at the same time, to be able to work with others and to communicate, and at the same time, to not give up, just to keep working and to have a strong work ethic. So really, I think that, again, I think that society is changing. And the future is even more bright for the girls, and for the little girls and even the teenagers now. I think they will have even more possibilities than you and I did, for example, right now.
Mm-hmm. You have achieved such success. I would say, what would you say? Which recognition do you value the most?
Type of recognition, or?
Yes. Let's go to your athletic career, for example.
Yeah.
Is there a certain recognition that you value the most? I have a huge list of achievements. You were awarded as the best athlete in one of your competitions, and of course, all the medals that you have received over the years.
I was always kind of outside of. I prefer to remain outside of the public eye, and I never craved any type of recognition. That was always my character. But I think it was more the praise that I got within my own family and my close-knit group of, within my own team. It was always the praise that I got from those who were closest and dearest to me, of course. And really, the external motivation was never a factor for me, because you know how hard it is as an athlete, especially as a combat sport, when you're first starting out. It's not like we're sponsored or we're funded, or even for me, it was much later that I became carded and I got the support from the government. So really, I mean, the recognition part was never something that I focused on, or something that was important to me as an athlete. Maybe for others it is, and I know that it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, personally for me,
Right.
it was never a determining factor, and it wasn't a factor at all, actually.
What about? I swear this will be my last question.
No.
What has been your most satisfying professional experience?
So this one is a little bit of a tough question, because I can't think back to one singular event that I could say that this was my best experience. Of course, when I won my last medal at the Tokyo World Championships, it was extremely rewarding. And surprising at the same time. But upon reflection, it's the entire journey that has value for me. It was the entire experience. It was the fact that I started, like I said, going into the ring, and then just whatever happens, and pretty much everything is left to chance, and just hoping that I have a good outcome, and the high stress levels and just everything. And then really with my last competition, just being at a place of peace where I enjoyed competition. I was not stressed out. I was not frazzled. I thoroughly enjoyed the entire competitive experience. For me, when I reflect on it, it's the entire journey that is satisfying. It's knowing that I started at one point and I finished at another point, and that is extremely rewarding, because there was a tremendous amount of personal growth, of friendships, and of learning that was done during that time. And really, like, the lessons that I took and the growth mindset that I was able to take and really be able to put into every aspect of my life, whether it's my family life, whether it's my business, whether it's my coaching career. I think those were really like some of the best years of my life. So I can't say one particular event was really the defining moment of my career. I think it was all of it, the good and the bad. So
can I say that you are not the product of your wins or losses? You are the product of the journey and all the experiences that you've gone through.
Absolutely.
And of course, the result of this up and down journey that you led, and now all of us are here to follow.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to share it with you. So, and I hope everybody...
Mine as well. Very, very inspired. And I hope everybody who tuned in is also as inspired as I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Farinaz John. And it was a real pleasure. This was a wonderful experience. And I want to thank the Yara Leadership Foundation for giving me this opportunity. And it's been an absolute honor. So thank you.
Thank you.